Hi everyone, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So in our previous session, we talked about few of the vSphere features, and today I'm going to cover the one of the vSphere feature, which is content library. And here is the today's agenda. So we can verify the what is a virtual infrastructure challenge and solution, and the solution will be the content library. So we'll talk about content library overview and some real-time scenarios, or we can say real world examples for the content library, and benefits of content library, and content library, how it works, and what is a content library subscription types, and content library architecture. Within the architecture, we are going to verify the publication and subscription process, and within the architecture, we can verify the content synchronization, how it will synchronize among the vCenter servers, and also the content library requirements and limitations, and what is the main enhancements in our vSphere 7.0, and finally, we'll do the home lab. Okay, so let's start with the virtual infrastructure challenge. So there is one common challenge in our real-time scenarios when we are using a vCenter server. In our vCenter server, to maintain all our production virtual machines and test machines, we require a collection of templates and ISO files. So that scenario I explained here. Organization might have multiple vCenter server instances in data centers around globe. So some organization they have a multiple offices within a country, and some organization they have a across the among the region wise. Like they may have few countries in the APAC region, few offices in a EMEA region, and few are in a US and UK regions. So different regions they can have a multiple data centers, and each data center they can maintain minimally one vCenter server. And on this vCenter instances, organization might have collection of templates. So each location, like India, we have few data centers. Each location we have a some templates. So templates also not only for a one flavor, we have a multiple flavors of Windows operating system. Windows 19 standard edition one template, advanced edition one template. And if you have any data center models of Windows flavor, that is also we require a separate Windows template, and similarly for Linux flavors and also the Solaris operating systems. So that means there will be a multiple collection of templates in within one vCenter level. And ISO images also. ISO images not only for OS level images, operating system images, we can also have a application images also, like database server, SQL, Oracle, any other applications also. It's bundled with a ISO file only. So those ISO images also we needed, and so on. And the challenge is that all these items are independent of one another with different versions of these files and templates on various server instances. Let's say within our organization, we have a 4 vCenter servers. Let's say 4 vCenter server, one vCenter is a management vCenter and another vCenter is a workload vCenter. Management vCenter means all our infrastructure VMs, Active Directory, DNS, file server, all are management VMs running in a management vCenter, and workload vCenter is dedicatedly for a customer applications. So this management vCenter and workload vCenter is also a divided into a multiple compartments. So let's say one compartment is intranet compartment or intranet zone. That means these VMs all are in a within intranet only, and there will group a few other VMs into a internet zone. Even in the internet zone, we have internet management vCenter, internet workload vCenter. Like that we have a 4 vCenter. I'm just taking the example of 4 vCenters in our environment. Within these 4 vCenters, the challenge is every vCenter have a different templates, different ISO images, and also the OVF files, open virtual format file, or pre-configured virtual machine files. But when audit comes, our customer challenge is all our production virtual machines, especially the workload virtual machines. Workload means nowadays either it is a production critical VM or it will be a container or pod. Even the pods also that you nowadays the new terminology for the workloads. So workload is nothing but one simple understanding is production application where it is running, that is considered as a workload. That production application is nowadays modern application can be run it on a virtual machine or it can be run it on a Kubernetes environment, containerized applications. So anything considered as a workload. All these production workloads is running on a workload vCenter, and our infra VMs like vCenter server, VRA server, and any monitoring server, backup server, this all runs in a management vCenter. Because just to segregate the environment, management will be in a separate vCenter and all our production application will be on a another vCenter. So for these two vCenters, ISO file template will be in a different versions. But as a VMware vSphere administrator, our responsibility is all our four vCenter servers should run with a latest patch ISO file, latest patched template. Suppose Microsoft releasing every month, the second Tuesday they are releasing a security patches. These patches should be updated with all our templates. You can some companies they may have standard of monthly update, or some company they maintain a quarterly update standard. So based on your company standard policy, all our four vCenter server templates and ISO files should run with a up to date patches. So during this scenario, if you have a four vCenter means our administrator task will be four times we have to perform. So that is our main challenge here. So that point only we highlighted here. The challenge is that all these items means here templates, ISO files, and also the any of the pre-configured virtual machines. All these items are independent of one another. Independent means this template and ISO is independent for individual vCenter only. If you want to update, that update only on the specific one vCenter. It's not updated to the other vCenters in your environment. I took the example of four vCenter, but some companies, if you have a very large organization, instead of four vCenters, you may also have a more than four vCenters. Let's say 10 vCenters or more than 10 vCenters. During that scenario, always our template patching and ISO files update will be like a tedious task for us, and we have to do some repeated task every time on our all vCenter servers. But to reduce that manual steps, VMware introduced a solution called content library. So the solution content library purpose is the content library is the solution to this challenge. To address this specific challenge, we can use a content library. IT infra team can store OVFs, open virtual format files, and templates. Template means Windows, Linux, Solaris, any other operating system templates, and ISO images, and any other file types in a central location. Central location means they can copy all this information in a one vCenter content library. When they copy into the one central location, the content library keeps content up to date by periodically synchronizing with remote location vCenters. So whenever we update the content library, the same data, template, and all the information synchronizing with the remote location vCenter, ensuring that the latest version is available. Always our content library recommended to run with the latest versions, so that even if you have four vCenters or 10 vCenters server, we no need to worry about the multiple tasks. Even if you update one vCenter server content library, this content library data will be automatically updated to the or automatically synchronize and download the data to the remote vCenter servers. But how it will download, how it will be synchronized and all, we're going to observe in the following slides. But the key point here is the main whatever we are using for a common template ISO files and all, we can maintain a one centralized location. That central location will be a vCenter vSphere feature, that feature called content library. Okay, so now let's talk about the content library overview. So content library overview is like a content library is a repository, or we can say source or storehouse. This is a storehouse, the repository of open virtual format files, templates, and other files that can be shared and synchronized across vCenter server systems globally. So globally means entire the world. Our vCenters can be in any of the country. Let's say I just highlighted three vCenter server different locations. So even if you update your content library on one location, it will automatically synchronize to the all your remote location vCenter servers. Okay. So that is the importance of content library. Now we'll just try to elaborate some more points on a content library in real time scenario. So real world examples, content library. So as we know, vCenter servers, we can maintain in a three scenarios. So I'm just highlighting a three scenarios here. So scenario one, normally organizations may have minimally two vCenter servers. One is a active vCenter, another one is passive vCenter. Or we can say active vCenters also, some scenarios. That means every company have a one primary data center and secondary data center. Secondary data center means it's like a second site, or we can say disaster recovery site. So primary vCenter always we consider as a active site, and the secondary data center we consider as a passive site. So to maintain your primary site ESXi host, we require one vCenter, and similarly for your DR site, disaster recovery site, also require a one vCenter. But some companies, instead of maintaining active passive, they will also maintain a active sites. That means both sites are active only. So during that scenario also, we still need a two vCenter servers, because one site is in a Hyderabad location and another site is in a Delhi. So both sites also require a two vCenter servers. That is scenario one. And let's talk about another scenario. Some companies, they may use the feature of VCHA. VCHA means vCenter server high availability. When you configure vCenter server high availability, here each site we require one vCenter, but instead of one vCenter, when you are using a VCHA, automatically it will configure a three vCenter servers. That three vCenters, one is only active, another vCenter is in a passive state, and we also have a third witness site also. This witness site also running with a vCenter, but always users and our administrators accessing through active vCenter. The remaining will be coming to picture. In case of active vCenter is down, we can try to access from a passive vCenter. Passive vCenter, automatically it will become as a active in case of active vCenter is down. But how VCHA work and all, I will explain in a later session, because we haven't covered the VCHA concept. I will explain in detail in the later session, but understand that suppose some organization, they will also use this format of VC also. They may use three vCenters using VCHA, vCenter high availability. That means requirement is three vCenters. And another scenario, vCenter server, some large companies, they divide the vCenters into four compartments. So compartment one, intranet management, it mainly for our intranet. That means there is no internet facility, only intranet VMs or management VMs running in this vCenter. And another vCenter, intranet workload. Workload means all your production application where it is running, all your production application related VMs and containerized microservice containerization platform, all will be run on a intranet workload. And similarly, not only intranet, there will be internet related internet applications, internet facing web servers. Those all running on a internet management. Even for internet management, we need a separate internet faced active directory, DNS and management servers. So that's why there is a separate compartment for internet management. And as similar as intranet, there will be an internet workload also. So each compartment we need a one vCenter, because our organization size is very big size, large scale organization. So two vCenter, three vCenters are not enough. We should go with a four vCenters. If your branch officer keep growing, even our vCenter servers also growing to four VCs to eight VCs, 8 to 12, like that we can increase. Okay, because some companies, for example Infosys or TCS, they have so many branches across the globe. So that means each wherever the company is running, the data center is located, each location we should have a separate vCenter. We cannot maintain one vCenter for all remote locations, because there will be a high network bandwidth is needed. So best practice is each data centers, they will go with a separate vCenter. So like that, our vCenters count will be increased. So in these three scenarios, let's talk about a small organization, how it will be. As we know, infrastructure, when the infrastructure size is small, so vCenter minimally, we need two instances for two sites. And the sites you can consider either active passive, or some company they maintain both as a active. So any of the scenario, but requirement of vCenters in small organization is minimally 2. And ESXi hosts, 100 ESXi hosts, and virtual machines are 1000 virtual machines. So on average, if you are maintaining 1000 virtual machine means you may mixed with a multiple flavor of operating systems, and the templates approximately can maintain 20 templates, and ISO files also 20 OS images. Some ISO files are for a backup application ISO, and some are for a security application, monitoring application, some are like a database application. All these applications also comes with a ISO file only. So approximate count I given as a 20. And open virtual format. Open virtual format means pre-configured virtual machine. For example, our vCenter server. When we install vCenter server, we haven't created any VM, we haven't mounted the ISO file. We just use the OVF file from VMware website and we import it to the ESXi host level. It's created a vCenter server. That is nothing but a OVF file. Not only vCenter, there will be some of the applications there. It's come up with a OVF format. So those pre-configured virtual machines will be vary from company to company. So even those pre-configured virtual machines, approximately given the count for a small organization is 20. So these all 60 items is our responsibility to maintain up to date latest patches. Suppose your Windows operating system running with the 2022 OS. This 2022 OS you install in this year January. But in the February, March, April, within these 3 months, Microsoft releases a patches 3 times. All these patches also we have to update in our template. So to update in a template, if you have 4 Windows template means we have to 4 times log into the specific template, convert the template to virtual machine, power on, and update your patches. That is one method. Or you can just convert into a virtual machine. You can use any third-party tool to push the latest patches. That is another method. But again, if you have a 2 vCenter server, we have to perform this task 2 times. Okay, so there is no automation. If you want to automate, we'll go with a content library feature. It will automatically sync the template update information to the second data center. Okay, that is the purpose of content library. The same scenario applicable for medium scale organization. But the count for the servers is 3 vCenters means if you have 2 sites, each site running with the 3 vCenters. So 3 plus 3, I just given as a 6 instances for 2 sites, and ESXi host count increased to 400, VMs count also increased to 4000, and the template ISO OVF files also. I given average count. The count will be slightly vary from organization to organization. Okay, so even though if you have multiple template ISO, again the concept is same. It will be a manual task without content library, and same applicable to large organization also. I give an example of 8 instances of vCenter servers, because 8 instance why means each compartment they have one vCenter server, because organization size is very huge. Okay, so when your organization size is increasing, our vCenters count also will increase. And ESXi host are 1000 and virtual machine count is 10,000 virtual machines. And similarly, template ISO and OVF files count also increased. So when you even the small organization we can manage to do manual, but when comes to medium and large organization, definitely we start using the content library. Okay, to reduce our manual tasks. Now let's talk about the benefit of content libraries. So content library, it looks like a even our physical library, our normal national public library. If you see in public library, there will be a one rack. Racks consist of multiple books, but in our vCenter content library, instead of books, we have a images only. You can use some OS CDs or application CDs, and also some OVF format files, and also a OS images template. Template means it is a master image of virtual machine. So multiple template, and also this is a always secured environment only. It won't provide the access to everyone until you provide the password to the remote location. Then only we can access our source or centralized content library. Okay. Now the key point here for benefits of content libraries, using content libraries, administrators or IT consultants can perform the following functions. The functions are like you can store all this content like a template, ISOs and also the any of the OVF format files. And we can maintain the version wise. You can have a multiple versions you can maintain, and this content will be always shared content. And perform distributed file management. We can always perform these files will be distributed to among your organization data centers. And synchronize the content library across sites and vCenter instances, and mount an ISO file directly from a content library. So even if you want to mount a ISO file, we have multiple options. You can mount a ISO file from data store, or mount a ISO file from local system or your jump server, or you can mount directly from a content library. And perform live updates of a VM templates. So directly from a content library also you can do a virtual machine templates live updates. And hence the key point for content library is storage and consistency. Consistency means stability or reliability or key reasons to install and use a content library. So I given one example here. A vCenter instance, when we create a content library, central content library to store the master copies of OVF template and ISO images and other file types. When we publish this content library, other libraries which might be located anywhere in the world can subscribe and download exact copy of the data. So the keyword here is subscribe. Okay, when they subscribe only, they can download from the remote location content library data. Okay, so now we'll talk about how this content library works. Let's say in this diagram, we have a two vCenter servers. Let's talk about the green one is a primary vCenter and the blue one is a secondary vCenter, or it is a remote location vCenter. We have a two vCenter servers. But within this vCenter servers, first I created a content library in a primary vCenter. So when we create a first content library, we are considered as a this content library for a local vCenter only. But we have a option to give it as a publisher permission. When we give you a publisher permission, it will create a version among your templates, all the files, it's created a version 1. So this is considered as a publisher content library. In general, content library, we have a three types of content library, that is local, publisher content library, subscribed content library. I repeat, we have three types of content library: local, publisher content library, and subscriber content library. But here it is showing as a publisher content library, because local content library means it is only accessible to the one vCenter only. It's not accessible to remote vCenter. If you want to provide access to the remote vCenter, or if you want to distribute your data to the other vCenter server, we should be configured as a publisher content library. So in this publisher content library, we have a multiple templates, all are configured first time. So the version also represent as a version 1. Okay, suppose after some time when we did some changes on one of the template, when we do the change, the version is changed to 2. Version change means like either you can do a latest patch, or you can upgrade your Windows operating system from Windows 2019 to Windows 2022. That means there is a some change. When the change happen, the version will be changed from version 1 to version 2. So when it is changed the version 2, automatically your content library publisher version also modify to 2. Okay, so this is also changed to 2. And another point is, when we plan to assign to the remote location, what will happen is the remote location has to subscribe to our publisher content library. When they subscribe to our publisher library, the data will automatically sync to the our subscriber content library. Subscriber content library is nothing but our remote location vCenter server. So remote location vCenter server can be in any of the location. Okay, but within our organization, when they subscribe to our primary vCenter, or whatever the data we have in our primary vCenter, all the data will be synced to here. Okay, but how it will sync, what is a background mechanism and all, again I will explain in the following slide. But here try to understand the high level overview of how it will works. Okay, and the points also, the even suppose when we do some changes here, for example in the publisher library, I do the change on another template. When we do the change on another template, it will also change from 1 to 2, and our total version of public content library is also updated to 2. From 2 to it's changed to 3. When we do some changes, these changes also will automatically sync with our subscriber content library. Even subscriber content library also, through the auto synchronization, it will update the version into the 3, and also the templates also get the latest. Whatever the changes happen on a source vCenter, that changes will automatically sync with the our subscriber content library. Okay, so this is a key point here, how the content libraries works. The same points I highlighted here. The content library is a distributed template, media, and script library for vCenter server. Here, not only OVF file templates and ISO images, even you can also copy the scripts also. Okay, and the simple versioning exists. Simple versioning means normally the first version is starts with 1. Whenever you do some modification, version will keep on increasing, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and so on. Okay, the simple versioning exists because it is required for content synchronization to work. So this synchronization will identify only based on the version change. When there is any version change, immediately whatever the version is changed, the same content items will be synchronized and updated in our remote vCenter server. Okay, so this is a high level overview of how our content library works. Now let's talk about a content library subscription types. So content library, there are 3 types of content library are available. Those 3 types are local, published, and subscribed. So let's understand the what is importance of local. So local means library of content that we control, that we control means it is only in our local vCenter server only. It's not allowing to access by remote vCenters. That is considered as local content library. But the other 2 types are published content library and subscribed content library. I will show you in the home lab how we can configure these two, and understand that what is the importance of published content library is the local library that makes content available for subscription. Within the local content library, there are few items. If you want to provide it to the external vCenter servers, you can just makes the content available for subscription basis. Okay, so that means it is available for a subscription. And the subscribed content library purpose is this subscribed library that syncs with a published library, and it will download the latest changes from published library to subscribed library. Okay, but how it will do is it will based on the automatically, it will whatever the changes you did on a published library, that changes will automatically sync and update download it to the our subscribed library. Okay, but how the synchronization happen is we have to enable a synchronization option in our published content library. Automatically it will provide a one subscription URL. This URL should given to our subscribed remote data center location vCenter server. They will subscribe to our source vCenter using the URL only. Okay, and for that URL it require authentication, as well as there is a protocol, VMware content subscription protocol. That is a default protocol to sync the data between published content library and subscribed content library. Okay, and username, password, and all, it's our choice to keep any specific username and passwords. Same points I highlighted here. 3 types of content library are available: local, published, and subscribed. We can add items only to a local and published library, and we cannot add library items. Library items means ISO, OVF, and also the templates. We cannot add it to the subscribed library, because subscribed library is only can pull the data from the published library. We cannot add items here. We can add items to this both local and published. Suppose on demand, if there is any change happen on in your published library, when the any change happen on published library, what will happen is the library content, we have a 2 options. On demand basis, immediately download all library content, or download library content only when needed. So these 2 options are available while you're configuring a subscription. Okay, so that means after synchronization, both libraries contain the same items. Our end goal is subscription data and published data both should be the same data. So the same point highlighted here. After synchronization, both libraries, that means published library, subscribed library, contain the same items, or the subscribed library contains the metadata for the items. So this one consider as a metadata. Okay, because this metadata is coming from a published library. Okay, so now let's talk about the some more additional details on published library and subscribed library. Because local library is pretty simple, it's a normal creation of library. Let me log into the lab. Before we dive into the some more concept, let's check in our lab system also. Okay, vCenter is powered on. Okay, now we can see how we can create a content library first. Seems our all our ESX in the maintenance mode. Let me bring up the host. Right click the host, exit maintenance mode. Okay, all are exiting from maintenance mode completed. Now we can bring up the VMs also. Okay, there is one inaccessible VM. That means it requires a storage rescan. Okay, so if you want to create a content library, just select your menu. Under menu, we have an option directly here, content library. You can click here, content library. You can see the content library information here. There is one existing content library recently I created, or there is another option is again select here, go to the home. Under the home, you can see the option for shortcuts. When you click on shortcuts also, you can see the logo for the content library. Okay, when you click content library, this is also it will redirect it to the same page. So we have two options, content library, advanced and create. So we'll try to observe the first option, how to create a content library. So click on create. There is already existing content library 01. So let's create as a content library 02. So we'll choose the same name, content library 02. And the nodes, you can keep any nodes. For example, if you want to keep for your templates or any information, that nodes you can write any nodes here. Suppose we are creating today. I'm just putting the today's date and for templates and ISOs. And we are creating on our same vCenter server. So it is pointed to our vCenter name vc01 demolab.com. So click on next. When we click on next, see you can see the content library, all the types. As we discussed, we have a three types of content library. One is a local content library, but local content library, when you just enable this option, it will act as a published library. But just for time being, we'll create local library first. And this is a second type, published library. And the third option is subscribed content library. If you want to subscribe the content library, we have to provide a specific published content library URL. VMware given an example. That URL can be HTTPS server, the specific path library.json file, JSON. Normally the library files URL, it will be understand only the JSON files only. Through JSON file only we can subscribe. Okay, and it will also require a authentication. And once we enter the URL, we have to provide the username and password. Okay, just for secure access. Okay, and also the download content, we have a two options. Either you can download immediately or when needed only you can download. Okay, this is the options are available. So first I am just creating a local content library first. When you select the local content library, click on next. See, there is a apply security policy. If you want to apply the security policy, there is a default OVF security policy. OVF means open virtual format. You can just apply the security policy and add the storage. You can create the content library in a either a local data store or you can create on a shared data store. Just for the time being, I'm selecting the content library in a ESX4 local data store because compared to our nested ESX host, this host have some additional space. Let's say I'm choosing the ESX04. It have more free space, so I'm selecting this capacity. Yeah, free space is 1.75 TB and the remaining are only the small sizes. So I'm selecting content library for local data store which have more space. It's not only local data store, you can create on a shared data store also, but the procedure is same. We have to choose one storage to create a content library. Once you select the storage, just click on next and you can see the ready to complete. Before completing the click on finish, just read through the all the options. Name is content library 02. We just mentioned some notes for our easy understanding. And vCenter name type is local content library because we haven't enabled the publishing option. And the publishing option is disabled state. And security policy, default security policy, and the storage is our local data store. So now click on finish. So when you click on finish, in our recent task, there will be a create library. This task is completed. So once it is completed, you can see the icon is created content library. That content library icon is looks like a our library book icon. Okay. When you click on content library, see in the left side, you can see OVF, Open Virtual Format, Open Virtual Appliances, Templates, all are it is showing the item is 0. And even VM templates also showing at 0 because just now we created, there is no templates are here. Okay, that's why all the items are showing as 0. But I will show you how we can add this existing template to this content library. We will discuss. Okay. Before deep dive into this concept, let me try to elaborate the importance of publication and subscription libraries. Okay. Just now we noticed if you want to modify this local to publication library, just right click this content library or go to the actions, click on edit settings. This local content library at any time you can make this as a public library. When you enable a publishing option, it will automatically provide you a subscription URL. This subscription URL ends with a .json file. Okay, so if you want to assign, you can assign, and also the authentication. If you want to keep the authentication also. The authentication password also you can keep. Let's say I'm just keeping our regular password. Okay. Now once we assign this local content library, will going to act as a publishing content library. So click on OK. So modification is completed. You can see this is published externally status is yes. And the subscription URL is automatically created and the URL is understand only the JSON file format. So HTTPS ends with a .json file. Okay. And the password protection, yes. This is how we can create a published content library. Suppose if any of the remote vCenter, they want to subscribe to our content library, they can subscribe using this URL, subscription URL. Okay. When we click on the subscription URL, they will get the username and password. So we have to give our vCenters our username and log in with a password. Maybe we have to provide the it is with a remote vCenter only. It's not within the vCenter. That's the reason it's a redirecting to again password. Okay, let me cancel here. But we understand that how we can create a content library and we can provide a publishing permission. Same way, if you want to create other one also, let me show you. Go to the content library. If you want to create other one, again click on create and mention the any name. Let's say content library 3, and comment you can keep any of the comment. Suppose I want to keep this mainly for a Tanju setup. Let's say for Tanju ISO files. When you select for Tanju, just mention the comment, click on next. And if you want to enable it as a local content library, you can enable, or you can, if you want to publish, you can publish. If you have any external URLs, you can just choose the external URL. How we can subscribe is we require a JSON URL. I will just show you. Just now we observe how to create a local content library and how to enable a publishing content library. Now I am going to show you how to create a subscribed content library using the external vCenters also. Suppose there is some external URLs also. Let me Google it. VMware Tanju subscription URL. When we log into the VMware website, there is some subscription URL details. Yeah, you can see subscription URL. Okay, subscription URL address of the publisher. So you can just copy this URL. It is also starts with HTTPS and hence with a JSON file only. You can just copy this link address and log into our vCenter. Just paste here. Okay, that means whatever the latest ISO files and dumps are available on this content VMware website, all this will be downloaded through subscription URL. Okay, and enable authentication, you can just leave it blank because there is no password information. Just leave it blank and download content immediately. Click on next. That means we are creating a subscription URL content library. Using subscription URL, we are going to prepare a subscribed content library. Seems this lab system internet is slow. That's why it's still rotating. Once it is detected, we have to map to our storage, either local storage or shared storage, and then ready to complete. That is how we can subscribe the content library using the any of the existing remote vCenter publishing URL or any of the VMware external URL also. It's taking some time. In the meantime, let's back to our slide. So this point we covered. So this is how I mentioned the point here. Library content, immediately download all the library content or download library content when needed. Okay, clear? Now let's talk about more points on the published content library and subscribed content library. In this diagram also, we have a two vCenter servers, and these two vCenter servers are running with a some of the templates and also the other files. Other files means like scripts files or ISO files. So we have a OVF file, VMDK. Template means it's consists of VMDK files, and ISO file. We also have some script files. The same information when the subscribe URL, if you want to subscribe, we have to give some URL. That URL starts with HTTPS and JSON file. When the remote vCenter trying to trying to subscribe our published vCenter server. When they subscribe using the library.json file, the password is optional. And the additional service within the vCenter service is content library service, and also we have a transfer service. This content library service will always help to synchronize with the data between our primary vCenter and remote vCenter. And the transfer service, the name itself, transfer service, it is the responsible to request the data from primary vCenter and sends the data to remote vCenter server using HTTP. Okay, so subscribing using a URL first from the remote vCenter. When we subscribe this URL, what will happen is this content library always import and export the data to remote vCenter. But during the import and export, the main key role is taken care by transport service. This transport service only, it will get the data from our primary vCenter using HTTP GET. Whatever data we have in our primary vCenter, all the data will be synced with our remote vCenter server. So the points I highlighted, the key points here. Publication and subscription allow libraries to be shared between vCenter servers. Only within a vCenter servers we can share this data, and provides a single source for information that can be configured to download and sync according to the schedules or timeframes. The schedule timeframe, either you can maintain immediately or when needed also you can download your data. Normally in the real-time scenario, they will schedule the download option only after office hours. After office hours means after 6 p.m. Okay, and using VMware content subscription protocol, how the it will subscribe is the backend protocol name is VCSP. VCSP means VMware Content Subscription Protocol. The content library service determines what has changed and sends the request to the transfer service asking it to copy to the required files. So when the content library detected, the content library service detect any change on our source vCenter server, this when they detect the changes, that changes immediately using transfer service, it will send the data to the remote vCenter server. Okay, so that is the importance of publication and subscription. Even just now we observe in our lab, if you want to subscribe the vCenter server content library, we require a one remote vCenter server JSON file URL, or you can use a external VMware URL also. So external VMware URL, we just now verified in our vCenter. See, it is showing as unable to resolve the remote library host name. Okay, maybe it is unable to resolve. Any space copied here? Seems there is no space. Let me try again. Okay, this is a subscription URL for subscribed content library. Okay, so now let's talk about some more additional points within the publication and subscription. So we can have a several content libraries per vCenter. So per vCenter, we can create a multiple content libraries. Even in our vCenter server also, we created two content libraries just now, and again I'm creating another content library. So the same point I highlighted here. We can have several content libraries per vCenter. We can have a subscribed library and published library on the same vCenter. So just now we created a one local content library and we make it as a published, and I'm trying to configure a subscribed library also on a same vCenter. And note that single storage backing by each content library. See, when we are trying to create a content library, we should map to any one data store. So single storage backing by each content library. Okay, and the content library service is equal to management pane. So whatever we are using content library service on vCenter server, that is considered as a management plane, and the transfer service is nothing but a data plane. So data transfer is changed, taken care by our transfer service only. Okay, now we'll talk about another deep point here, how the data will be synchronized. So synchronized, we understand that the main protocol in the backend is VMware Content Subscription Protocol. We'll talk about some more detail on the VMSP protocol now. The content library architecture content synchronization, how the content is synchronized. If you see in this diagram, we have two vCenter servers, but these two vCenter servers have a equal data. We have a script here. We also have VMDK file, OVF and ISOs. The same content is available on a destination remote vCenter also. But after certain time, like either monthly or weekly, there is a some change. There is a chance of changes happen on a vCenter server. Let's say here one ISO file is updated, but that ISO file not yet reached the destination yet. But how it will reach the destination is the initial process. Whenever the template is updated, automatically our vCenter content library version also updated. That is the first step. When the version is updated, immediately content library using VCSP, VMware Content Subscription Protocol, it will automatically detect the latest change on our published vCenter server, published content library vCenter server. When it is detected, it will start requesting the data from our vCenter server. But how it will request is, it will always verify the JSON files data only. Library.json, items.json, item.json. When it is detected some change on a source vCenter, it will immediately send the data to remote data center. That remote data center, once it is sent it to the remote data center, whatever change happen on our source vCenter, that data will be updated from source vCenter VC database and also updated on a destination vCenter database as well. But how it is transferring the data is, the transferring process is taken care by transfer service. This is the data plan. It will pull the data using HTTP GET. So GET means it will get the data from source to destination. Whatever change happen on our source side, the modified ISO file immediately copied to the destination also. But earlier there is no ISO file. Once we send the request from transfer service to source, the source will send that file to the destination. Okay, this sending the request and downloading the file will be, we have two options. You can download either immediate download, or you can set your schedule to after office hours. Okay, so that point I highlighted here. After the copy has been completed, the subscriber updates the database to reflect the updated versioning information. That versioning information also updated on a destination vCenter content library, as well as our VC database also update its version information. Okay, that is how the content will be synchronized from one vCenter to remote vCenter server. That remote vCenter server will be in any of the remote location. Now we'll talk about the content library requirements and limitations. As per our VMware configuration maximum guide, there will be some limitations. So let's try to understand what is those limitations and requirements. So single storage backing and data store is needed while creation of content library, and maximum supported size is 64 TB. Even if you have less size also, we can create content library, but maximum size it supports up to 64 terabyte. And the biggest content library item size is 1 TB. Within this content library, the one file, one ISO file or one virtual machine or one script file, the one item size maximum is 1 terabyte only. Okay, if the size is more than 1 terabyte, our content library is not supported. We have to look for a other alternate options. And maximum 1,000 library items per content library. Within one content library, we can create maximum 1,000 library items. Items means ISO, template, scripts, and all. Okay. And another limitation is maximum 1,000 content libraries per vCenter. Just now we are trying to create a 3 content libraries in our home lab vCenter, but within the 3, not only 3, the maximum limit for a per vCenter, we can create maximum 1,000 content libraries. Okay, and maximum 16 simultaneous sync operations on a VC published content library. So how many times, just now we talk about the synchronization, right? That synchronization simultaneous means concurrent simultaneous synchronization operations between the vCenter server. One published content library, maximum it supports 16 time synchronization of 16 parallel synchronizations. Okay, and synchronization occurs every 24 hours. It's a by default. You can also modify this time, but the default synchronization is every 24 hours. and license to the scale based on content library usage. Just now, we are trying to use one external content library, which is VMware website content library URL. That URL, sometimes it also required a license also. Not only this Tanju content library, if they are using any of the other published library to the external VMware official subscribed URLs, it may require a additional licenses. That point they are highlighting here. Okay, so let's see in our lab, is this trying to download or not? Seems it's unable to resolve this one. Okay, we can safely ignore this point. Okay, and we just observe that these two options, local and enable publishing. Even if you want to republishing the same information to this content library, we can use our previous URL also. Let's say this content library have this URL. Let's copy this link, go back, go to the content library. Let's try to create the new one, content library 3. And here I'm trying to subscribe with a existing published URL. Not authorized for the request operation because we are trying to do within a vCenter. So that's the reason it's fine. But in the remote, if we have a second vCenter server, we can use this published URL to the remote vCenter server. Okay, but we have verified the option how we can subscribe using a JSON file. Okay, and currently this content is 0. And during the lab item, I will explain you how to upload the ISO files and templates here. Let's talk about the another point, content library with vSphere 7.0 improvements. So in our vSphere 7.0, there are some enhancements compared to our previous 6 series versions. So what is the main improvements are? Versioning is enhanced. VM template check-in, check-out and versioning feature is enhanced. Suppose in our within a template, when you select the template option in the right side in a vCenter server, you can see the multiple options. You can switch the view to the classic view to new view, and also the versioning optionals you can find from a versioning tab. Okay, so quickly find VM templates versions, check out the templates for edits. Even you can edit the templates from here, and the check-in templates to save changes made. Whenever the changes made, all information you can find who did the change and all, and revert to the previous versions also we can perform, and the classic and the new view of summary. This is a classic view. If you want to change the view to the new view, in the right side you can have to just click on the switch to new view. This is the new features available from vSphere 7 onwards. So let's quickly log into our lab. We can see this option. Suppose if you go to the vSphere cluster, vSphere client, go to the inventory. Within our inventory, we can select our VMs and templates tab. When we select the VMs and templates tab, we can see the templates here. We have a couple of folders. You can look for a template folder. See, under the template folder, in our lab, we have a 3 templates: Windows 2019 template, Windows 2022, and also the RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8.5. And this is the icon for the template icon. Suppose if you select the any template, you can see the option in the right side is versioning option, but they are clearly highlighting that. Let me increase the font. Yeah, VMware clearly highlighting that versioning information is only available for templates in a published or local content library. Okay, this is not available on a direct vCenter template. This versioning option available when we add this template to content library, then only the version will be available. To add the template to an existing content library, select a VM and select a clone as template to library. VMware clearly given the instruction here how we can add this template to content library. If you want to add this template to content library, just right click here. They also say select VM and choose this option. So right click the virtual machine, go to the options are, this is a new VM from this template. If you want to deploy new VM, this is the first option. Convert the virtual, if you want to convert the template to VM, second option. And if you want to make a clone, duplicate copy of template, this is option. But sending to the library, this is the option. So we are cloning this template to library. When you select this option, you can find here what is available libraries in our vCenter. So present we have two libraries. One is content library 1, another one is content library 2, which is created today. Okay, so I'm just selecting a content library 2. Okay, and you can choose the template name same like virtual machine name, our existing template name. And if you want to keep any address, you can keep preserve the MAC address, include extra configuration. This option, if you want to modify, we can modify. You can check these options or just leave it blank. Click on OK. When we click on OK, this template is going to add it to our content library 2. Okay, now click on OK. So in the recent task, see, create library item completed, and also upload files to a library in progress. It may take some time to upload this template to the content library. That upload is in progress now. Okay, once it is uploaded, we are going to observe the versioning information here. Okay, and if you want to see the new view here in the right side corner, you can see switch to new view. This is a new feature from vSphere 7 onwards. When you click on switch to new view, you can see the new view. See guest operating system information, what is the capacity, and if you scroll down VM hardware information, if you have any tags you can find here, virtual machine notes you can write. In the below you'll see the versioning information. Okay, so any method you can use to see based on your comfort. You can use a customized view or you can use a classic view. Even in the customized view, you can see all these options, notes, tags, and versioning. Even classic view also same. Currently upload is in progress 37%. So in the meantime, we'll verify the other options in our slide. So this point is clear how where we can verify the versioning information. Okay, now let's talk about the VM template versioning tab. There is another tab for versioning tab. Let's talk about this tab also. See content library VM template versioning tab. There is a separate tab available for versioning. You can see whatever the changes you did on template, all this information you can see from versioning tab. But this feature is not available in our previous edition, 6 series editions. New versioning tab allows quickly historical view of edits. When we did the last modification, all the dates and all we can find. So just I took the screenshots from the Google for our easy understanding. Suppose one screenshot is it is showing the different month and date, and the latest one having a different month and date. And versioning information only available when VM template is stored in content library. So this is the important point. So until unless if you store this template to any of the content library, then only these options are highlighted. Okay, that is a key point here. And let's talk about here another option now. In our content library, when you see just now while creation of content library, there is an option for advanced tab. When we click on advanced tab will give you some advanced configuration and optimization options. So let's try to understand the advanced configuration in content library. When we click on advanced option, we'll get the advanced configuration tab. So this tab, it consists of vCenter server and auto sync frequency. How automatically it will sync the data from primary vCenter to our remote vCenter server. That options are, it will show you some default option. If we want to modify this option, we can modify anytime. So edit the auto sync frequency and performance optimization. Either you can use the default values or you can modify based on your customer requirement. So library auto sync enable status true and library auto sync interval minutes, 240 interval minutes. It's like almost close to the a few hours. Okay. And also the auto sync start hour, this hour is they mention as a 20, that means approximately 8 p.m. So these timings and all you can modify anytime. Even we have an option for performance optimization. This optimization also library maximum concurrent sync items they set for a 5, but in the as per VMware configuration guide we can use the maximum concurrent sync items maximum it supports for a 16. So just to reduce your network bandwidth, these numbers you can modify anytime. Okay, so optimization value they given as a 5. and even the maximum concurrent NFC transfers. Like if you have a NAS storage, that's NAS storage also they given as a 8. And bandwidth, you can, if you want set, you can set the bandwidth consumption or leave it as a default value 0. And also the maximum number concurrent policy transfer and service restart required. Sometimes there is a chance of require some service restart. You can just put the any failure of synchronization, the retry it will try from a 5 times. Okay. This is about the advanced configuration and optimization. This advanced configuration and optimization, if you log into our vCenter server, just go to the content library tab. In our content library, when you select the content library, either one or two, any content library you can select, just go to the advanced tab. When you click on advanced tab, you can see the advanced configuration, auto sync frequency and performance optimization. Okay, so this is all the default values. Okay, if you want to modify any setting here, they're clearly saying that service restart is required. So we have to restart the service. Okay, they clearly highlighted the subscription service require a service restart. And these are all the default settings, and they given start hour is 8 p.m. 20 means it's a 24 clock, 20 means it's equivalent to 8 p.m. And the performance optimization, these are all the default values. If you want to modify, we can modify. Okay, what is the maximum number of priority transfers and also maximum number of concurrent transfers and all we can set. Okay, so this is about the advanced configuration and performance optimization. And let's talk about another point. In our content library, there is an option for API Explorer also. In our previous session, we talked about development center, how to see the development center overview, how we can capture a code capture. So same way, if you want to verify the specific content library API, normally our development team will ask us, what is the API call for your new content libraries? But how we can capture the new content libraries are, you can just log into vCenter server, go to the development center, and select your vCenter server and choose the select API as a content. When you choose the tab for your content, you will find all your content library API explorers here. Okay, so developer center API explorer, easily find the APIs for content library interaction and configuration. So execute get or post commands directly in a vSphere client. Normally this information is needed for our developers. When they ask for this information, you can just log into vCenter and search with the content and find this information and send it to our developers. So let quickly show you how we can see the our content library API Explorer. Log into vCenter server, go to the developer center. When we select the developer center, we have a 3 tabs: overview, API Explorer, and code capture. So let's go to the API Explorer, and default its selected endpoint is our vCenter server, and the selected API default is vCenter. Just select the drop down menu. There are multiple API options. You can look for a option for content. When you select the content and click on search, you will find all the options are related to our content library API categories. Okay, so this API information, if you want to modify or if you want to subscribe anything, you can just want to get this subscription URL or anything, just expand here and you can just run execute. When we click on execute, you will find the URL. This URL we should change it to the our developers. They will use for a remote vCenter subscription, or they will use for any remote script also. They will use this URL. Okay, so that is how we can use the API Explorer. I repeat, from the API Explorer, the main key item is we need to choose the select API as content. Then you will find all the API category items. Okay, and next option is okay, home lab. So within our home lab, we are going to observe the 3 options: how to create a local content library, just now we verified, and the publishing library also we verified, and subscription content library. We require a either internal, if you have 2 vCenters, you can use one vCenters published URL for a subscription content library URL. I given one example for external subscription URL, which is our Tanju one workload management URL. Okay, this is external URL. Okay, let's quickly see the labs one by one. So go to the content library. we have a two content libraries here. If you want create another one also, same procedure. Let's say we'll make this as a local. I'm creating a local content library first, local CL. So local CL means just click on next. You can choose only local option, click on next, and security policy you can enable default security policy. Suppose this time I'm creating a local on a ESX data store one, local data store one, click on next, click on finish. But before finish, just observe the URL is a local content library. This is the type, local content library. Now click on finish. So this is how we can create a local content library. And another lab is for publish URL. How we can publish the URL is either you can use the same local content library or you can create a new one, mention the any name. Let's for our easy understanding, publish content library. So publish content library, click on next. When you want to create a publish content library, remember that we need to enable this option. Okay, enable publishing. And if you want to enable authentication also, you can enable or uncheck this option. And now click on next and enable security policy or uncheck the security policy. Just for testing purpose, I'm just unchecking this one. Click on next. And the storage, if you want to choose the any specific data store, you can choose the data store, either ESX1 or ESX2, anything you can choose. Click on next. And now this content library's type is showing as local, but it is already published one. So published content library. So second published library also created. Suppose if you want to create a subscribe subscribed content library, you can just mention the name as subscribed content library. You can use any of the number, content library 1, 2, and so on. Namings and all, it's our convenience. Subscribed content library, click on next. So instead of these two options for subscribed content library, we need to choose this one and we need to enter the subscribed URL. So that URL can be either you can choose the external URL or you can choose your existing vCenter URL also. Suppose if I'm selecting existing vCenter URL, click on next. But within a vCenter, it's giving a not authorized option. So we have to use a remote one. But we verified the option how to create a subscribed content library. But while subscribing the content library, subscribed option, we required a one dedicated URL, which can be a remote vCenter or any of the external URL. Okay, but we observe the option how to create a subscribed content library. So these three options we verified. Now the another point, clone a VM template to template in a content library. So we are going to clone a virtual machine template. That clone will be copied to content library. How it will be copied is log into vCenter, go to the inventory, VMs and templates. Suppose earlier we selected for Windows 2022. Suppose if you want to select the RHEL also, right click the RHEL, you can choose clone to library. That clone to library only, that is a short word it is showing, but actually in the backend what it is doing is cloning that template. That VM template will be cloned and copied to the content library. So how it will be, select the clone to library. So here you can choose whatever library you want to publish. Suppose content library 1, select the content library 1, click on OK. When you click on OK, it will start doing the uploading to the content library. Okay, exporting OVF is in progress. So that is the option for second lab. And the third lab is deploy VM from a VM template in the content library. Earlier, we already uploaded a Windows 2022 template. Using that template, how we can deploy a virtual machine. So log into the vCenter, same like previous options, go to the menu, select the content library. When you select the content library 2, if you see here, other types is 0 and OVF and OVA, there is a one template is running, OVA template is 1 and VM templates are 0. When you select the OVA template 1, just select this template. Under the templates only it's available. Right click here. You can choose the option to new virtual machine from this template. When you select new virtual machine, it will start deploying a new virtual machine. So let's say content library deployed VM. Just for our easy understanding, this VM is deployed from content library. So I mentioned the same name and choose the ESX host, any host, data center, and ESX host is ESX4. Click on next. And this deploying virtual machine template, we know the same procedure for content library template also. The OVF package contains some advanced configuration options. Okay, it's fine. We'll just leave it default. Click on next. And the data store, you can choose the any data store. I'm choosing the data store which is have a more space. Click on next. And network and all, we can leave it to default. Later we can modify. Now, this is a summary of all the details. Click on finish. So when we click on finish, this using content library template, the deployment is in progress. See, deploy OVF template is in progress. So this is the options in our content library lab. Any questions, let me know. It may take some time to finish. And in our summary tab, we can see the default policy option. And templates tab, there is no VM template. We have a OVF and OVA templates available. And other types, there is no other types. And the subscriptions, currently we haven't subscribed any URL yet. And go to the inventory. In the meantime, select your Windows 2022 template and go to the summary. Now versioning option may update. Go to the versioning tab. Versioning information is only available template published and local content library. Okay, let's go here. Content library, library 2. When we click on here, maybe it may take some time to update the versioning information. And here, if you want to deploy one more VM also, we can deploy the new VM from this template, content library template, and you can update the item, export this item, clone this item, and you can edit the nodes, rename, tag, and delete. All these options are available. So when you go to content library, we can see how many content libraries we created. All this information is available. If you see the first content library, there is a 2 templates and the other content library is 1 template and the other 2 templates, 2 content libraries are running with 0 items. Okay, here there is a HA proxy template and a Red Hat 8.5 is uploading is in progress. Okay, so that's it for today. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay, we covered today the content library concept. Let's quickly update our master sheet. In our previous session, we talked about the workload management introduction. The lab for the VMware Tanju and all, I will show you in the later classes. But from the vSphere topic perspective, the basic concept I covered. Okay, we'll make this as a green. I'll cover separately for VMware Tanju concept because it's a separate course actually. So I'll cover in the later sessions. Once we finish the vSphere features, we'll focus on the latest concepts, VRA, NSXT, and Tanju. Okay, and today feature we covered is 7th one, content library. Let's make this as a completed. Okay, we are almost closing the These remaining and all very simple concepts, maybe I will cover in the next session. These two are important: host profile and lifecycle manager, and the resource pool and VApps. Maybe resource pool and VApps I will cover in one session, and these two topics also may take additional sessions, and these are all small topics only. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye for now.